hello everyone. First of all, thank you for attending this panel. By way of introduction, my name is Alberto Rodriguez. I'm venture capital lawyer at international firm Bird & Bird. We advise founders, companies, funds, CVCs in all stages of the formation and creation and scaling up of the companies. We have a pleasure today of having here to Gonzalo and to Alvaro. I can say very good things on them, but I think it's better that they present themselves.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I will start. Hello, hello. Can you hear me well? Silence, please. Yeah. So yeah, my name is Alvaro Moya. I have been CTO, so I come from the techie side. I have been CTO for now 11 years. And I'm here like the role of the founder, more like the founder, the technical founder, and the one that maybe understands what is behind AI. So if you founders, you entrepreneurs want to learn a couple of things about how to incorporate that in your pitch and in your product, because nowadays it's essential to grab some money, I will be the guy.
Hi, thank you, Alvaro. Pleasure to be here. I'm Gonzalo, founder and general partner at Cardamom Capital. We manage today 250 million. We do have a number of different strategies, but we invest in deep tech. I've been investing in deep tech for the last 15 years. Prior to founding Cardamom Capital, I was heading an investor for Samsung Ventures, the investment arm of the Samsung Group. Thank you.
Okay, very good. So I think that we have here now one of the most sexiest panel in this afternoon here at South Summit. You know that everything that is related with AI is super sexy, and I think that number speaks by themselves. I have a piece of data here that we wanted to share with you. Some of the largest VC deals closed during the first quarter of this year, 2024, has targeted AI companies all through the world. It is true that the lead has been taken by the US, China, and we have also India in the top 3. But we have seen very important movement also here in Europe, as for instance, the agreement reached between Microsoft and the French AI company called Mistral AI. This is one piece of data. The other one is that 10 of the world's new unicorns during this first quarter of 2024 are AI-backed startups. Finally, according to the World Economic Forum, by 2027, 75% of the companies would have implemented AI technologies in his processes. So these are the big numbers, but I think that taking advantage that we have here two very true experts on the field, maybe it's worth to start trying to fixing the basics, because what is AI, right? This is a very good question. I can ask, because as a lawyer, I see a lot of pitches. I would say that 60 or 65% of the companies claim to have a business related to AI, but at the end of the day, they are not managing to persuade funds to invest on them. So what is AI, or at least what is the AI in which the investors are really looking forward to invest?
Please go ahead.
So the thing about AI is that, I mean, AI has been there for decades, and I think what now is thriving is specifically Gen AI, generative AI, but this is only a subset. I mean, in artificial intelligence, we have machine learning. Inside machine learning, we have algorithms related to neural networks, that is deep learning, and only then you can find the subset that is generative AI, and there, the large language models is what you can use every day to turn your prompts into text generated automatically. But the reality is that AI is much bigger. It's computer vision, it's natural language processing, it's even robotics. And I think we tend to confuse, like, we say AI, and it's like, okay, you are creating something out of the blue in the AI space, like technically speaking, or you are just leveraging on a model like Azure AI, OpenAI, that are available through APIs to really leverage that large language model and adapt to your content, because that's, I would say, 80% of that 60 to 65% of startups selling AI-based products right now. And the reality for me is that that's a weak advantage nowadays, and I think it's gonna be tough for some of them to really compete in the long term. Maybe now is the hype time, but time has taught us that once there is a hype in a bubble like crypto or metaverse or whatever, things tend to consolidate around the biggest players like Google or Office, around Office and suites related to Offimatic. And I think the same will happen here. Some products are now products themselves, but I think in a couple of years, some of them will just be features of bigger products, right? So it's important for me to understand if you are proposing something different that is going to survive in the long term or not.
Right. That's a good point. That, again, generative AI is a subset of AI. AI, in the end, is really trying to match or surpass human capabilities, whether it's vision or hearing or reasoning. In many areas, AI is already more powerful than humans. Vision, for example, what's called computer vision, you can have sensors that can see infrared, that can see, in other wavelengths that humans cannot see. With regards to LLMs and this craze, this generative AI craze, for the first time, it looks like these assistants or these chatbots have the ability to reason. But in reality, it's statistical, neural networks and all sorts of other data crunching that come up with the most probabilistically true solution or answer. But in reality, it doesn't have to be even true. For example, if you look at ChatGPT, you look up Cardamom Capital, it'll explain probably that we're a VC, that we do this, do that. But they may mention that we've done deals that we haven't. How is that possible? This is called a hallucination. It's inherent into LLMs, and it's important to understand that there's much, much more than just ChatGPT and these sort of things.
Okay, very, very interesting. Some days ago, while we were preparing this panel, because every panel is prepared, even if people don't say that, I remember that Gonzalo told us that a friend of him asked, "Hey, Gonzalo, if ChatGPT is such a great tool, why should we care to invest in any company other than the owner of ChatGPT, right?" So probably the question for you as a professional investor, Gonzalo, is how do you identify good opportunities in this ecosystem?
That's a great question. This was coming from an investor who asked us, with OpenAI, aren't all AI startups dead? And the answer is no. It is true that when you have such leaders, and by leaders I mean either OpenAI or Google or Microsoft, if you have a startup that's doing exactly or operating exactly in their core, they're likely going to be crushed. So in this sense, ChatGPT is very good synthesizing, understanding, fetching information, and so on. Companies that were doing this in other ways that don't include large language models will likely die. But think of it this way. You may have a butler, you may have an executive assistant that is helping you, but you still need an expert lawyer. You still need a private banker. The same thing applies with AI. You're going to need vertical-specific AI, use-case-specific AI. ChatGPT is not going to be universal, at least not anytime soon. And so you're going to have startups that are focusing in specific markets, addressing specific needs of the customer, that can get very, very big. Because as they may not be developing an underlying AI model, but they'll develop other technological moat that with time, or just network effects of having a lot of customers and a lot of data, that will become barriers to entry to the big ones. So what we're trying to do is not to focus on things where it's clear that Amazon, Google will be exactly in that same space, because likely they will be wiped off.
Okay, that's very interesting. Thank you very much, Gonzalo. Growth opportunities in general are not free of risk, and in this case, I think that AI is not an exception. We have seen traditionally that AI has raised several concerns, mainly in legal terms, at least for my part. We can say that these main terms could be, the first one, it could be the intellectual property. The main question here is, who is the owner of the intellectual property that has been generated by these by this new technology? And more important, who is the one that is going to indemnify third parties in case this IP is breaching third-party rights? That's one main area of concern. Then we have one about the ownership of the prompts and all the training data that we provide as input to the system. Who is the owner of that? Actually, I don't want to be very technical, but in Spain, even we have the question if that can be the ownership of someone at all, or if only compilation of big data could be considered as a creation and as such to be owned by an individual or by a company. But in any case, who is going to be the owner of that output? It is that the client, it is that the AI company. Is the owner going to grant a license to the client in this case, or to the AI company? Can the AI company use the data and these outputs to render services to competitors of the client? That's very interesting. That is like the second area of concern. And the third one, I think that is about privacy and data protection. It is true that the main concern about regulators and government was that AI was kind of messing everything in terms of protection of users and data. But I think that we have had like very good advance so far in this respect, right? Both from a legal perspective and from a technical perspective. From a legal perspective, we are very. Oh, sorry, I have a. No, it's fine. It's fine. And from a legal perspective, we have had good news. 2 weeks ago, the European Data Protection Board has issued a new report stating some of the basic that everyone playing in this ecosystem have to apply. And this is very good news because this gives certainty to an area in which certainty was much more than expected. And from a technical perspective, you were commenting before that there have been also measures that has been implemented to try to cover all these risks.
Yes. So first of all, I think the biggest training has been already done, right? Never ever they paid to the owners of that information, so they were able to launch this new generative AI snowball. But the different models need to keep being trained with factual data from the real world. And now is when, from the legal perspective, they are entering into how to license that content, so they pay the owners, how to regulate the different uses that you can do, how to regulate the way you introduce personal identifiable data into the systems. But from a technical perspective, the reality is that there are many ways in which you can make sure that your data is not leaving your boundaries, right? So there is kind of tools like privateai.com, for example, which is a novel practice that is, I will be sitting between you and the LLM, between the ChatGPT website or Anthropic, Claude, Cohere, or whatever, and then I will collect all your information. I will do it locally, and then what I send to the LLM, everything is tokenized. Okay. So instead of sending your name, I will say name 1, address 1, company 1, and when the data is coming back, they will replace the token with the real key, the real value. So at the end, you get the information, but you are not transferring context that can really identify people, for example, and you are really applying GDPR with your personal data, for example, even if your employee forget about that and just throw a lot of personal data or financial data from your company, right? And my point of view here is that, again, this will be a feature soon, and I would say sooner than later, where the big projects like ChatGPT or Claude or GitHub Copilot will have these mechanisms already done there for the at least for the premium subscribers and the corporates. And this way, the company can be sure that the data will not be trespassing their boundaries. So first, they are not infringing any law, like GDPR. They are not assuming the risk of, I don't know, explaining their IP, their secrets in the public, and then being available in a model. And with that, we are limiting a lot part of the risk that now most of the corporates are questioning when they think about adopting these models, right? Copyright, privacy issues. That's it.
That's very interesting. Sometimes when we that are dealing with this matter every day, I think that we miss this kind of open discussion between technicians and regulators, and because it appears that this kind of solution would bring to an end every legal dispute in respect of the data protection and privacy, right? Okay. That's very interesting. This was like the three main points that an investor typically would say or would regard as something that could be risky for their inversion. And all this is highly negotiated in every single investment agreement, right, between funds and startups. And then this is, at the end of the day, as everything in negotiation, a matter of allocation of risk. We are seeing how this allocation of risk is taking form, and the boundaries of this allocation is changing every day, because all this is so novelty for us that we are improving and we are implementing new solution as we speak here right now, right?
No, just a point. I think that the case came with New York Times, who is maybe suing, I forget, or threatening to sue OpenAI. I haven't been following closely, but because they were using the New York Times website to train. But that's just one thing. There's also user data, your own company data coming outside. But then AI poses a lot of legal issues. For example, impersonation.
Yeah.
Now we're seeing so many virtual copies. I think LinkedIn, the founder has already shown that with a company called Hour One, I think. And at some point, there's going to be so much content copying or so many similarities that the boundaries blur. Additionally, cybersecurity as well. Now, when you have such speed of changes being able to be done automatically to attacks, they can mask with constant changes. This is true for a few years now, but these new models are enabling very fancy things to be done, even when it comes to email phishing and impersonating someone so that you end up putting the wrong bank account details on that. So it's going to be a very, very interesting perspective from the legal side to see how AI evolves. The other comment that, when you're looking at big trends like AI, it's good to think of what happened with the internet. The internet was this big thing that was going to change the world, which it did. But there was a big hype, then a trough of disillusionment, as Gardner says, and now who doesn't have a website, right? It's not a competitive edge, it's a must. AI will be the same. Specifically, these types of models are going to be embedded in every single service and company that is worthwhile. Today, it's a competitive edge to own this know-how, but in the future, it'll be open source models and so on.
Yeah. That's very interesting. Actually, when I was thinking we're preparing this panel, that whatever we said like 10 years ago about software as a service, SaaS, applies now to AI, right? In terms of, is there a bubble? Are all these companies really doing something that is worth or that is different and that would help to save the future, right?
Yeah.
That's very interesting. But we have seen some of these big uncertainties, but now we wanted to add a new uncertainty more. That is the open source AI. I don't know if you are able to share some insight on that.
Sure.
Yep. You ended with open
no,
source.
It wasn't on purpose, to be honest. I forgot what you were going to ask. No, so open source and code reusability is key for development. Now you also have copilots, which are automating a lot of the coding. So you're going to have constantly repeating over and over and over and again the same type of code, and it creates vulnerabilities and attacks. So you're not really controlling the code because it's been done by somebody else. And so it's a huge attack surface. But in terms of AI, as I'm sure you're going to discuss now, today we have proprietary LLMs, but the future is likely going to be either in-house trained LLMs or through open source models, most likely. That's, I think, what we think will happen. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Yes, so specifically about coding assistant is my field of expertise. And at the end, in my courses, I train with, for example, GitHub Copilot is the biggest player. But the reality is that there are another tools that behaves exactly like that. But behind the scenes, you select the open source model that you want that is living in your computer. So right now, they are tiny. They can live even in a mobile phone. And this is the way Apple is going. And I think we will see some news soon. But for example, for a computer right now, a MacBook laptop, even if it's not this Mac chipset, it's enough to run these kind of small models at the same, more or less at the same pace than you have, for example, ChatGPT on the web, right? So that is opening a whole new set of tools that can run entirely on your device, which allows all these companies to mitigate that risk and eliminate it completely, because the information you are sharing is shared with your local computer, your employee's computer, or maybe a server that is under your property, either on-premise or in the cloud. But at the end, I think part of the problem is that people normally don't understand that all their data are already on the cloud, in a server of Google or Amazon or Microsoft. Is not in their property. So AI is not introducing, open source is not introducing any risk, because their data is already out of the company most of the times. 70% of the code they produce, they didn't produce it. It's just libraries and frameworks and tools that are there to facilitate coding on top of that and abstracting all the layers like security and signing and password recovery, and having part of the fancy interfaces. So you don't start from scratch every single product, right? So sometimes I think it's the lack of understanding of the open source world that makes them afraid of that wave. But at the end, they are already living on top of open source. And with open source AI, I think they finally will understand the benefits of open source, which is like charging, so paying less, and also being in control of what they can control, right? It's not just the cloud, it's not just the SaaS provider that decided to raise the monthly fee. It's just that they don't decide to launch that feature that is really important for you. It's like you adopt it, and if you want to extend it, you extend your way, and it's hosted on your premises. So that's for me the magic of open source, and in terms of AI, it's about limiting the fee and limiting the exposure of your data to the world.
Yeah, that's very interesting also. I remember when I started working like a long time ago, but I remember that there was in the investment agreement, there used to be a representation by the founders of tech companies, software companies, stating that they haven't used any open source code while producing the software. And I've seen how this representation has been deleted in the last year. Like everyone now understood what is open source when it relates to software. Probably it would take some time to understand what it means when we get to AI, right? But hopefully we have like people expert in this field like you that is able to explain us in simple words. So thank you very much for that. So. I would say that we have tackled all the points that we wanted to tackle in this panel. Maybe we can close it by, I don't know, you are an expert investor, you are an expert entrepreneur. So I don't know if you can say a final word saying that, or conveying what you think that people have to do if they want to raise funds or to succeed in their entrepreneurship.
Well, I can do that, but I'll just say that there's something very interesting. The world is not ready for the changes that will happen. The changes are going to be much, much bigger than the internet. This is huge because the speed of innovation and development, including programming and code, is going to accelerate at speeds the human won't be able to adapt to. There's another very interesting trend, which is you have software as a service, and you're going to have service as a software, meaning you're going to have AI agents doing the work of a human. And it's going to introduce new charging models. It's going to introduce a hybrid model where you have humans interacting with agents as if they were other humans, or differently, but in ways that I think are yet to be seen. Very, very exciting time. In terms of raising money, figure out what is your technological mode or your business mode, or you have barriers to entry, the right team. Make sure you are committed to this because it's long term and it's not an easy play.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Alvaro?
So from my side, I would say the same. I mean, if you want to invest wisely in these innovations, I would say that now you have a teacher that is ChatGPT, for example, that can teach you a lot about the technologies that are underlying, right? And I think it's important to make informed decisions, because right now all of us, we are going to be paid for doing that. And all of the tedious, automatic tasks that we do every day, they are going to be totally eliminated. If it's not now, it's in 2 years from now. And that opens up a new way of doing work where it's much more creative, it's much more collaborative. And you can really rely on these things without hallucinations, without privacy concerns, etc. And we all need to learn and adapt to live with a copilot that is always by our side. And it's not just one copilot, it's a team of experts from any single field that we need at every point in time. And this new way where we are the team lead of one or a team, whatever, that is not a human, it's a robot, and that are expecting from you great communication to get a better result. And that's for me the biggest change, the biggest shift that we are going to do in terms of mindset and way of working that has happened, I would say, since remote. So this is my 2 cents here.
Okay. So thank you very much.